Brian Windhorst, senior NBA reporter from ESPN and longtime Cavs beat writer, joining me here back on the show. How you been, Brian?
Hey, Rich. How's it going?
I'm fine. Game 3 was different. Why?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, the Cavs hit their threes, and I wish I could give you more analysis than that, but it's really important for them to hit their threes, more important than maybe any other team in the league, because it just covers for all their sins. And they also played with more aggression defensively, but I kind of think that only kept up because they hit their threes. Because if they had been missing them, based on the way they played all year, they probably would have let their guard down. I also thought the Celtics were a little bit too nonchalant. They'd won 7 of the last 8 games, and I don't think, came in with the same intensity that you'd have to win with a road playoff game. They haven't been good on the road, so it's not really that big of a surprise, I guess. But I'm expecting the Cavs to not shoot as well from 3, and the Celtics to play with a lot more intensity tonight. I think tonight will probably be an extremely important game in the series.
Well, in terms of intensity, the Cavs absolutely ratcheted up. I mean, the numbers support what you said, Brian. 76% of Celtics shots were contested in Game 3 compared to 58% in the previous 2 games. I mean, isn't that – I know you say they need threes, but isn't that also want to? I mean, how does a team dip like that and then suddenly raise up as the Cavs did, best you can tell with this team?
I know. I'm telling you, Rich, it's the making of the threes affects their entire mood. So, let me just give you some evidence of that. In Game 2, for example, the Cavs were up by 8 points in the first half, and they were up by 12, and they allowed 2 free Celtics baskets. But they played a really good first half. The Celtics shot under 40%. The Cavs shot 7 of 14 and on threes in the first half of Game 2. They were really into the game, really, executing their defensive game plan. Second half, 3 of 17. They completely lay down defensively. The Celtics shoot 50%, and they win the game. I'm not saying it's all necessarily on just the making those shots, but it helps the rest of their team stay engaged. They have an ability to let go of the rope. And the Celtics, by the way, have an effect on that. They're not missing those threes in a vacuum. They contested really well in good spurts in those games in Boston. But, there's also been some defensive adjustments. I don't know how much X's and O's you really want to get into. But, one of the things that the Cavs really have noticed is that Jaylen Brown, when he has a good first quarter, he tends to have a good game offensively. When he doesn't, he doesn't. And so instead of having Kyle Korver or J.R. Smith on him, they put LeBron on him to start Game 3. And LeBron was very aggressive and into him. They changed the way that they have defended Al Horford, which is a really important factor in this. But all in all, I thought, Terry Rozier, who's from Cleveland, and I thought he was way too jacked up. I thought he was taking some shots out of sequence, and I thought that hurt the Celtics too. There's a lot of little things, but big picture, when you go 17 of 34 and you're the Cavs, their offense is so potent when they're making those shots, they're going to win those games. So,
Brian Windhorst here on ESPN. If we know it, then Brad Stevens definitely knows it. What do you think the adjustments from the Celtics are going to be for Game 4 this evening?
Yeah, so I think Brad Stevens has probably spent the last 36 hours thinking about how to get Al Horford freed up. So in the first game of the series, the Cavs came out there. They started Kyle Korver and Kevin Love at center, and the Celtics attacked Kevin Love in pick and roll. I think they put 41 pick and rolls on him, and Horford just ate him up because Horford's a tremendous distributor. He can put the whole ball on the floor. And so starting the second game, he was using Tristan Thompson on him, moved him into the starting lineup, and then they used Larry Nance, who's, in my opinion, their best defensive player, as the backup on Horford. And Horford has had a much less impact these last 2 games. He had a really good second half in Game 2, but the first half of Game 2 and all of Game 3, not effective. So I'm expecting a possible lineup change for Brad Stevens tonight. He may bring Aaron Baines into the starting lineup and try to make it a little bit harder for Tristan Thompson to just stay on Al Horford and move them in some actions. But even if they doesn't change the lineup, I expect there to be some maneuvers to try to get Tristan Thompson off of Al Horford so he can get more involved again offensively.
Brian Windhorst of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show in the Western Conference Finals. Give me the blueprint for Houston to win 3 out of the last 4. Is there one?
Hope that Steph Curry and Kevin Durant get food poisoning.
Wow. I don't know that that's feasible, Brian. That's a tough one to pull off, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to have an inside man. So if they've got that in the portfolio, now's the time. When the Warriors have an engaged game. And what I mean by that is a game where they're not throwing the ball into the third row because they're just not concentrating, and they work their habits defensively. They're as close to as an unbeatable team as I've ever seen. And I don't really want to get into the conversation of greatest of all time. Let's just say that the game of basketball has never been played at a higher level than by this team when they're playing this way. And it's not that ridiculous of a thought. I mean, go tell me the last time a team has had two MVPs in their prime playing on the same team. It just has never happened. And I know that Pippen and Jordan were probably pretty close, but Pip, he's my colleague at ESPN. I'm not denigrating him. He was never an MVP. They have two MVPs in their primes playing together. And I don't know whether it's good for the NBA. You know, you talk to certain people in the league, and they have skin in the game, so it's hard for them to have perspective. But they will tell you that the salary cap spike that made it feasible for the Warriors to sign Kevin Durant was one of the worst things that's happened in the league in the last 20 years in terms of competitiveness. And I think people love watching the Warriors, and the league in general is being watched very, very widely. The ratings are very strong. So maybe people from the league would say that having a juggernaut team is actually good for the league. But in terms of competitiveness, those two guys together and the Warriors' ability to keep them together, which it looks like they have a good chance of doing, it's taken a wrecking ball to competitive balance. And the Warriors owe no apologies. They worked within the rules, and they were prepared, and they had some fortune come their way, and things fell for them. But putting those two guys on the same team, and last night you saw them, they both played well. I don't know what the antidote is for, short of food poisoning.
Wow. I mean, then if we're talking about, if we're talking real talk here, which we clearly are, if LeBron's Cavs don't win 3 out of the next 4 in the Eastern Conference, then a Celtics team, now there is a large Celtics fan base, obviously coast to coast, but a Celtics team without a bona fide superstar would be starring in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Warriors. You don't think there would be a ratings hit for something like that?
Oh, it would be a ratings hit, but I don't know how competitive it would be.
You think it would be more competitive? No, I know that. That's what I'm saying. It's just, when you sit here and you basically say that a 65-win team needs food poisoning help to get past a 2-time champion of the league, including the defending champion, and then the 2 teams that they would be facing in the championship are so flawed that they really wouldn't have a shot. To me, that is bad for a league, Brian. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I remember saying this back in 2016 to Cavs fans who were frustrated they were facing maybe losing 2 finals in a row, and I basically said you have to run out the ground ball against the Warriors. Unfortunately, the ground ball is being hit to Ozzie Smith in his prime, but you got to run out the ground ball because you never know what will happen. And in that case, it did. So what I would say to the Celtics or Cavs, should they advance, I would say, you got to jump through every hoop and you got to turn every corner. You got to run out every ground ball. But, I mean, let's just be honest where this league is. When the Warriors are fully healthy, I don't think someone's taken 4 out of 7 off of them. And, in 2016, some circumstances happened. Not only the great Draymond Green suspension, which was key, but also Andrew Bogut, who was their really important defender for them at the time, hurt his knee and got knocked out in the last 2.5 games. So, things happen. I'm not saying don't turn the TV on. I mean, you watch it. But in terms of like a competitive series, I don't foresee that with as strong as this Warriors team is. And frankly, I felt that way for a long time now. They got off track, and I think maybe their biggest weakness, the Warriors' biggest weakness, is lethargy, and that's one thing that Steve Kerr was fighting all season long, trying to keep these guys engaged. He was pulling his hair out, doing every trick in the book, handing him over the clipboard and letting him run huddles because they and they had some injuries, but none of their injuries were severe. So, that's the only thing that's stopping them is lethargy and injuries. And right now they're not lethargic nor are they injured. And that's devastating for anybody who's playing against them.
Brian, love the chat. We'll chat during the NBA Finals, okay? I love that.
Thank you, Rich. Have a good day.
You got it. That's Brian Windhorst at Windhorst ESPN.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.